Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the Rapido Monthly Update. Today's update is for May 2024. My name is Megan Weldon. I'm Rapido Product Manager, and I'm happy to share some time with you today. Okay, today's session will follow a familiar format. First, we will discuss the topics of the Rapido community for this month. Then cover monthly highlights for the upcoming June release. Then address frequently asked questions, and at that time, I will go into any questions that you pose for me today. Okay, first off on our agenda, topics of the Rapido community. So first item for the Rapido community is a big welcome to all of the libraries who went through implementation and went live in May. University of Canberra, Hong Kong Metropolitan University, University of Regina, University of Zooland, and California State Library. We've got libraries who went live in May from 5 different countries. So that's pretty exciting to see libraries joining Rapido from Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, South Africa, and the United States. Okay, another piece from the Rapido community is part of your resource sharing team was at Aluna. And so we had the joy and the opportunity of getting to connect with so many of you and other folks from the Ex Libris community, from the Ex Libris user community in Minneapolis, Minnesota earlier this month. If you aren't familiar with our faces, on the left there is Katie Birch, Senior Director of Product Management. And next to her is Judith, Director of Product Management, my face staring back at me there. And then to the right of me is Mike Richins, another Director of Product Management. And then on the far right, on the top there, is our colleague Letty, who is in marketing. If you haven't had the awesome chance to work with Letty yet, I'd be really happy to connect you with Letty. She works with our libraries to help tell their story. So if you have an interesting or compelling story or just want to share your Rapido story with other libraries, we'd be happy to promote that. And I'd be happy to connect you with Letty to do that. So please reach out if you are interested in sharing your story with other libraries, and we'd be happy to work with you. But we all got to get together in Minneapolis and also had the chance to connect with so many of you there as well. At the conference, in addition to connecting with one another, we had the chance to hear so many great presentations. Judith and Mike collaborated on a product update. So there are pictures on the right of Judith and Mike giving presentations. In the upper left, I have an image of Blake from Washington State University, gave a great presentation on letters and work that he's done on the letters for Rapido at his library. And then in the bottom left, Chris Lee gave a great presentation too from the perspective of the Cal State libraries who have hit 2 years live with Rapido. And we got to see the wonderful pictures that he shared with us as well. There were so many great presentations, just a shout out for a couple more. There was a fun session from Peggy at Florida Gulf Coast and Jennifer at East Tennessee State University. Both spoke to their successes with Rapido, some of those successes being increases in efficiency and increases in volume of requests from their end users, and being able to drop other resource sharing solutions as Rapido's meeting the needs of their institutions. Then there was a really fun, engaging session too from Kai at Regent University, and another, the bottom left is a screenshot from a group of libraries in Canada that gave a presentation on resource sharing up there as well. So a lot of great community presentations at Aluna. It was a lot of great opportunities for us to connect and hear from so many of you. So appreciate your time spent with us at the Aluna conference. While in Minneapolis, I also had the chance to get to connect with some other Rapido colleagues, Bethel University, the folks there using Rapido. I got to spend a bit of time at their library, hearing from them, seeing how they're doing their work, and appreciated that chance to connect with folks there in Minneapolis as well. So just some pictures to say hello from Bethel University, and thanks for the time from those colleagues there who spent that day with me. Another piece of the Rapido community is the upcoming Igloo conference in September in Copenhagen. If you will be at that conference, our team looks forward to another chance to connect with you, hear your stories, hear your updates, and spend that time with you in Copenhagen in September. Okay, topics from the development, so the monthly release, and this will be speaking to highlights of the June release for this year. The first development fits our Rapido theme, our Rapido pillar of connect and connecting our users. Okay, a lot of times I introduce a development by sharing the configuration piece first. This time I'm going to show you what this piece is and then how to configure it, so bear with me here. So this new functionality is one that you'll be able to enable, so we're not changing anything from your user's experience by default, so no worries about immediate change there. This is something you can hear about, read about, and then make a decision at your library. So the new option, once enabled, is this requested option. So once enabled, your users will see this requested in the dropdown within their library card. Some folks call it their patron card, some folks call it the patron account, but once they're logged into your Primo and they open that menu, if you have this functionality enabled, they'll see that requested option in that menu. Selecting that requested option opens a bookmark option for them to add to their browser. So just clicking that opens this little window where you can then add that requested bookmark to your browser. How this bookmark works is it supports bringing your library or your user to the library from wherever they are. This first example that we have with the June release is bringing them to their library even if they're at Amazon. So let's see what that looks like. So if your user is starting their search on Amazon or a part of their process is, from an Amazon search result, they can then select this bookmark and this blank form will open and automatically populate with information from the book results in their Amazon browser. So this blank form, there's multiple fields here. This blank form is the same blank form that you have configured at your library, and it will automatically pull the relevant information from the Amazon results into the blank form. Your end user can then hit that nice blue submit request button, and they get the confirmation message that their request has now been submitted as a resource sharing request to their library. So a little bit more information about this bookmark and this new functionality here to inform how you might consider using it at your library. So to know the the form that opens up for your end users from that bookmark is the same form that you configure via your Discovery Get It configuration and then in the resource sharing menu. So it's the same as your blank form. The address, email address, and pickup locations will be populated just as they are for the blank form. In order for the bookmark to work for your user, in order for it to populate, they will need to be logged into their Primo account on another tab within the same browser. If that's not the case, a pop-up will inform them that is necessary. So it's guides them to what they need to do in order for this functionality to work for them. The text is all configurable within the resource sharing labels table, so you can edit the text there, and the language of the text is saved from when the bookmark is created. User eligibility for using this functionality for accessing the blank form that auto-populates is determined using the same method that determines your option today to use the blank form for your end users. So if the blank form is available to your undergraduates, this would be available to them as well. So that's consideration to make if you want to enable this functionality. And additionally, if a user is blocked from placing a resource sharing request, they'll receive a message if they try to access this form, letting them know that they're not allowed to place a resource sharing request and to contact the library for assistance. Again, this text that they would see if they want to access this when they're blocked is customizable via the labels menu, so you can change and edit that messaging to suit your kind of the language you like to use with your end users. So that's a bit more about the requested bookmark that you can use going forward with the June release. So if you want to use this new functionality, it is something that is disabled by default, so you can enable it to true. In this mapping table here under configuration, resource sharing general, and then other settings, you'll see that the parameter value is false by default. You can change it to true to then allow this functionality to be visible to your end users. If you go forward with doing this functionality, I'd be excited to hear about how you maybe promote this with your end users. I know I'm going to get questions about what other libraries are doing. So if you go forward with this functionality and you come up with a way that you're, messaging this or informing your end users about this new functionality available to them, I'd love to hear what exciting things you're doing at your library. Okay, the next development highlight in the June release is related to the Rapido theme of being able to personalize your experience. This next development is one that I referenced in the May release, so might not be quite a surprise at this point. So with the May release, there was you started to see the option to be able to exclude within your facets. In the June release, you'll now be able to save exclusions as a set parameter. So backing up for folks who might not be as familiar, there are sets to organize your workflow. There are those that are out of the box that you can just enable, or you can create your sets depending on how you like to structure and organize your requests within your Rapido environment, right? And by creating those sets, it's pretty easy. You can select things that you want to include, apply, view those applications, and then save. This new functionality of exclude works the same kind of process that you're familiar with already with creating sets. You'll simply see when you hover over a set facet, the exclude kind of icon and label. If you then select to exclude, select that icon, you will be adding that as an exclusion. So then you see in under that apply kind of image there, what it looks like when a set is a facet is expected to be excluded from your set. And then once you actually apply that, what that actually looks like. So you might have your list of included set facets as well as your excluded set facets there. In creating that set, you can then save the set as usual. Here is a use case example. Perhaps there are multiple owning libraries at my institution, and I want to only see the requests for the owning library where I am processing requests at, so I can exclude the other owning library. Alternative to this is I could just include my own library, but depending on kind of your size, your structure, etc., it might be easier to exclude versus include, and have that option in creating your sets. Let's look at another example of a use case for this functionality in your sets. So an example here is staff may want to exclude requests with the test label from the being processed lending set. I know there are some folks who do a lot of testing, and this can maybe clog up what your other staff need to see in their day-to-day processing. So instead of now having to try to ignore all of your test requests, you could create a new set or modify their existing set that they work from to exclude anything with your test label or whatever language is used in your label to indicate that this is a request used in your testing. So here's an example here. This is their awaiting processing is what they've named this set. It's their requests, their lending requests that need to be processed, but they don't want to have to ignore all of those test requests, so they're excluding anything with that test label to be able to make it more efficient when they go to do their work. Right. Another use case example that I've heard about from colleagues wanting this exclude functionality in their sets is to maybe be able to exclude requests from specific partners in a set. Not that they don't want to process those requests, they're going to pick up those requests in a different set that does include those partners. But use case example, maybe your library processes mail shipments before 8:30 a.m., so you want to be able to focus on just the, partner requests that would go out via the mail. Maybe your courier comes later in the day. This could be, vice versa for you depending on your institution, but it allows you now to kind of create a set that is excluding particular partners to help you focus on maybe your morning processing, and then you have a set that is more inclusive of your other partners that you would then process a little bit later in the day. So a lot of uses for this exclude functionality. It might be useful for editing existing sets you have today or creating new sets to support organizing your workflows in a way that works for you. Okay, the next major development for the June release is relating to optimizing workflows. So this one came from the community via the NERS process. So first want to acknowledge thank you to everybody who was involved with the NERS process, the Rapido working group, and collaborated a lot with the Rapid ILL working group as well. And I know there was a lot of work involved there, and then a lot of participation as far as community submissions for enhancements and participation in community voting. So thank you all for your participation in the NERS process. It was the first Rapido NERS process that we've completed, and now we're delivering on the first development from the NERS process. And this development it might be familiar to you from being involved in the NERS process, but let me introduce it. The community identified the need, as currently there is not a way to identify fields as mandatory in the Rapido request form. Mandatory fields the community is used to seeing as indicated by a red asterisk to indicate to the user that something is mandatory. This is familiar from the other Get It pages or the other Get It forums, but this is not a functionality baked into the Rapido forms. This is important to libraries, particularly in being able to make fields mandatory that are really important for staff being able to process those requests, or for making those requests go through as automated as possible. So the community identified a need for being able to make these fields mandatory. And so that has come to be through the NERS process. So under the Rapido request forms customization, you'll now see that fields, so right now with the June release here shortly, you'll be able to see that you can determine which fields will be mandatory in that Rapido request form. So backing up for a little bit more context for folks, right? The form that we're talking about, if you're end users in your Primo, they discover this result, information literacy. They determine that it meets their information need. They open that result and get those Rapido offers. From those offers, they are selecting Get It, and the form opens. This is the form that we're talking about as far as now being able to have fields be mandatory. This example here has the email field mandatory, chapter number mandatory, and then a field that is asking your user to agree to something, whether that's a copyright agreement or other kind of a language that you've included there that you can customize. That those are the three fields that they've made mandatory at their library on this form. So what does that look like? Again, within your form customization, you'll be able to determine which fields are mandatory there. Then those fields will be visible on the form with the red asterisks indicating to your user what's necessary. And if they do not populate those fields as they try to submit their form, they will be informed that they need to do so in order for them to submit the form as expected. So that was a part of the NERS process. So thank you all for participating in that and making that development come through. My next item is a frequently asked question. And I think this one might be of interest to quite a few of you. So along the theme of the question, how to reduce duplicates and or latency in research results, there is a configuration option that we would like to encourage and suggest for your consideration and use. This configuration is found under the configuration pathway, discovery, display configuration, and then configure views. On that from that field, from that pathway, you'll get a screen that looks a lot like this, and then you'll see the checkbox, do not retrieve local records from CDI. That is a checkbox that you can select, and doing so will reduce duplicates that your end users are seeing. Also, if you are seeing latency in search results loading, this is a way to have an positive impact on making a change there. So a configuration that came out in a more recent development. It was acknowledged in a monthly release, but bringing it up again as it relates to some questions I've received recently and think it may be relevant for consideration at your libraries. Okay. Thank you for your time in hearing about the monthly update. I'm going to stop sharing screen so it's a bit easier to see what questions might be in the chat today. Okay. See a couple questions here. The first question, does the requested bookmark search our catalog to ensure that we don't already have access? No, the bookmark is how it's really functioning is auto-populating a blank form. So just like if your user went to the blank form, they would not necessarily have searched your discovery yet. They might not have already known whether or not you have access yet. Blank form submissions aren't doing that search, but you can have a mediation rule in play that helps identify if an item is self-owned to stop those requests before they would go on to the lending partners. So mediation rule with self-owned and available would be the kind of the parameters that you'd be looking for to create that mediation rule, and it could be stopping those requests if they went in via the blank form or went in via the bookmark and did not check for access at your library. I see, will the mandatory fields be customizable in the blank form? That's already the case today, yes. So you can customize what fields are visible in your blank form, and customizing your blank form, whatever customizations you have in place there, are what come through too on what your form looks like for your end users via the requested bookmark. Hopefully I've answered that question. If there are more aspects to it that need further follow-up, happy to discuss that with you. Right. I'll see if there are any other questions that come in. If you're typing your question, please continue to do so and send it in. Additionally, I'm going to put my email address in the chat, so hopefully that's visible to you, and you can follow up afterwards if anything comes up that we didn't get to discuss together today. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm not seeing any other questions come through. Feel free to contact me and we will work through any questions together. If you need to do that via email, we can do that. Or if you want to set up a meeting, happy to do that as well. Thank you for your time.